See people grow up. Now, I realized John called me a number of months ago and invited me to come, and we were real excited. And as the day got closer, I got the word that John had accepted a new position. You know, and that's exciting. I know it's also disappointing. It's disappointing for the people here. But isn't it exciting to realize that all that John has put into First Church and all the growth that has taken place in his life, God's now going to use him to minister to leadership of the Advent Christian denomination? I know it's disappointing, but he needs to go with an encouragement because God has brought him to that point. We think about the people that have grown up in the ministry here in First Church and in the Georgia Conference. Think of those that are reaching out and touching lives. We need to encourage people. It's tough to see them grow, but it's great to celebrate. To celebrate what God is doing. Secondly, we need to look people over. We need to look people over as they come in. When I first went to the church up at Hickory Grove, in the meetings that we had, they were in an area where housing developments were coming in our pre-session, pre-coming. I talked about the idea, what are you going to do when these new people start visiting our church? Are you going to be willing to let them take positions? You know, and right around the table, everybody, oh yeah, they can have my position, they can have my position. And I said, really? I said, think about it. Whose church is this? And they said, well, this is our church. And I said, yeah, and those are your positions. And sure enough, as we came, new people started coming into the church, and some of them came in that they were well-established Christians. They were moving into the community, and we had some Baptists come in, and you know, they came into the church, and they were spiritually mature. And we started recruiting them in and putting them in positions. And we had some of those older people saying, wait a minute. You know, we don't have a majority on the board. I said, yes, we do. They're all Christians. We need to look people over. We need to recruit and enlist them. Servanthood is a New Testament principle we need to challenge people with. You know, we've got the old statements in our American history. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. In the body of Jesus Christ, as people come in, so much of our mentality is, you know, what ministries can we do to them? What ministries can we help them with? But we need to be encouraging them to get involved. We need to enlist them and make them feel a part of the ministry, to take ownership. We need to, as we're coming in, to change, to surrender self. Let God make us what He wants us to be. I've often told my wife, and I've told the leadership boards, God did not call me into nursery work. I'm so thankful He put me in the pulpit that you can't even ask me to take my turn in the nursery. Karen is teaching a first grade in Princeton, North Carolina, and you couldn't pay me enough to lock me in a room with 26 6-year-olds for 7 hours a day. Okay? But I'm thankful that she gave Karen, or he gave Karen, those gifts. Okay? As we come in, it's a wonderful thing that God has for every person in this sanctuary, every person He calls, He has enlisted and gifted them with talents and spiritual gifts. And we need to enlist people to use those. We need to choose God's will for our lives. Thirdly here, we need to let people in enrollment in our lives. We need to let people in commitment to a process. It's not a threat. It's potential. People have gifts and abilities as they come into the body of Christ that we need to expound upon. That we need to utilize. Fourthly here, we need to line people up and equip them. It's training. It's preparing. Ephesians 4:12, that to prepare God's people for the works of service so that the body of Christ may be built up. It's a ministry that's ongoing. It's a tuning. It's not just warming up. It's enabling. And we do it together. And finally, we need to let people out. It's implementation. The measurements that so many times we take for success, the measurement is how many people are in morning worship. Was it success? Was it a good day? Well, we only had 25, or we only had 40, or so many people were out on vacation. One time at Hickory Grove, we had morning worship, and we were down at that point. We were down to about 40 people. And we kind of got together, and we had the worship service, and after we had finished, a few of us went out to lunch, and they were like, "Why? It's just a down service today." And I was like, "Why?" And they said, "Well, we only had 40 people." I said, "Yeah, but the quartet was ministering at a church in Raleigh, and the youth group had gone on a service trip, and we had 6 people in Honduras on a missions trip. It was a celebration today. They weren't here because they were ministering." Isn't that great? We need to let people out. The implementation. It's not just about the numbers that are in it. And don't get me wrong, I'm a preacher. I like to see the congregation full. But it's important that we get people in to hear the gospel, and we've got to have them here to equip them, and we've got to have them here to enroll them, and we've got to have them here to encourage them. But it's also exciting about sending them out into ministries and into outreach, into missions, to share their faith. To realize that letting people out of the church is success for eternity. To think about what really lasts. To touching lives for the kingdom. There was one pastor that in his entire ministry he had only had one baptism. Near the end of his life, he was sharing that he felt like he had served God, but he'd only had one baptism.